story time about how my parents tried to sell me to a man who wanted to marry me. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. When I was born, my family had a lot of money, but my dad was into some sketchy business. When I turned 17, my parents basically lost all of their money. My dad was in debt and owed money to a lot of bad people. He owed one man $100,000. When I turned 16, I got my first boyfriend. He was really caring and our families were friends. My parents actually loved my boyfriend at the time. But when I turned 17, my parents asked me if I was okay with an arranged marriage. I told them absolutely not because I had every intention to marry my boyfriend. He and I had already agreed that we'd get married when we turned 18. Slowly, my dad started insisting that I needed to consider it. After I kept saying no, he finally decided to tell me the truth. He told me that we owed one guy $100,000 and the only way that he would let my dad off the hook was by marrying me. He even offered my parents money in exchange for my hand in marriage. I was terrified. Part 2 is of how my parents tried to sell me off to a strange man so that he could marry me. I found out about the truth that my dad owed $100,000. He basically told me that the only way we were going to save our family was if I married this man, and that he offered my dad money in exchange for me. I was actually scared for my life because this man was known to everybody for being dangerous. I couldn't believe my mom was going along with it, but she said it was the only way that we weren't going to get our house taken away. They basically told me not to worry because I could always get a divorce from him. But of course I didn't want to marry him at all. That very night I snuck out of my house and went to my boyfriend's house. I told him everything my parents said and he was shocked. After discussing it for a few hours, we actually decided to run away. I knew I had to go back to my house, but when I looked at my phone, I had 10 missed calls from my parents. When I got home, they were waiting for me at the gate. And guess what? The strange man was there. My parents casually introduced me to this man. And when I looked at him, he was about 20 years older than me. He looked me up and down and handed my dad a check. Part 3 is up. Part 3 of how my parents tried to sell me off to a strange man so that he could marry me. This is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. The man looked me up and down and just stared at me. He handed my dad a check. That's when I yelled out that I was gonna go pack my stuff. Quickly packed a bag and escaped through my window. Luckily, my room was on the first floor. I ran for a few blocks where my boyfriend was in his car. Once I got in, we turned off our phones and drove an hour away. Then he told me he had a surprise for me. We got to this strange house and he told me to get out. When we went inside, there was a woman waiting for us. That's when he got down on one knee and gave me a ring. He told me that he would marry me in order to save my life. Everything happened so fast and we got married. When I turned on my phone, I had 100 missed calls from my parents. I told them what happened and they begged me to come back home. We got there, the strange man was there waiting for me. My now husband and I tell him to leave me alone. Thankfully, he ended up leaving. A few months later, my parents were debt-free. My mom sold all her jewelry and my dad sold his cars and a few other things. They should have done that from the beginning instead of trying to sell me. It's been 2 years since all that happened and I'm still married. The strange man has tried to contact me through Instagram. He offered me money once again to marry